Welcome to Smut and Sensibility,
a podcast for romance readers and romance writers.
By romance readers and writers.
We are Amber,
Allie,
and Marie,
a group of learned ladies who love talking about the romance genre.
In this podcast, we will talk about our favorite books, writing craft, and how we make room for a creative life in real time.
So buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another manuscript mini-sode. Welcome back.
Welcome.
Allie. Yes. Oh, yes. Welcome back. I'm Allie. I'm a doctor, writer, and part-time student studying history at Oxford. And my illustrious, beautiful, show-stopping, amazing co-host here, Amber.
Oh, I thought you were going to introduce Scout. Thank
he's
you.
Also here in the bottom corner.
Yeah,
Hopefully
Allie's dog's in the background.
Quiet, because he was a little bit grumbly during our last record because it's
he just wants to be
Neighborhood
seen and
Watch,
heard.
We've got to be
doesn't?
careful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. My name is Amber. I am a corporate attorney by day and a romance reader and writer by night. And apparently all those lovely attributes that Allie just described. I'm speechless. I'm flummoxed. Am I blushing? Thank you.
Yes,
You're
obviously.
You're so kind to me.
Yes, dear. Yes, dear. So today, this episode, we are going to talk a little bit about what to do when you are getting stuck. But before we get into that, how are we doing? Amber, how are things going? You know, we always got to do our check-in at the beginning of these manuscript mini-sodes. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I think it was fun and worthwhile to switch gears and work on the curling anthology story. And it was smaller word count, shorter timeline. And I really wanted to do the project just because I'm excited about it and wanting to give back. And maybe just kind of got me back into, again, trying to prioritize writing in smaller chunks, right? Like, I'm just not going to have the big time to sit down right now. So that felt really good. And so now that that's coming to a close, I'm really excited to switch back gears and hop back into my hockey romance. But I'm really excited about the episode today because I think it's not just time constraints, which is a big one for me, but I think I was falling into some of the pitfalls here of that. Like, I was actually stuck in certain places or for certain reasons. So like reminding ourselves when we were prepping this episode, the tools at our disposal to be like, just take a deep breath, take a step back. If it doesn't feel like it's flowing very well, why do you think that is? So anyway, I'm really pumped about today's episode and just some of the reminders and tools on how to get unstuck, because anyone that writes, it happens. Like,
yeah, it totally does.
Everyone jokes about writer's block, right, for a reason, or like the blank page, because it doesn't just come in one consciousness and no one ever changes anything, right? You got to like overcome hurdles and try to figure stuff out. So I don't think there's a writer out there that would ever say that they never hit a roadblock or were stuck at some point in their story.
And like there's lots of different reasons why people don't finish stories and why people get stuck, and having the time to do it simply is not always the reason. So in this episode, we're assuming that, you know, time is not your issue.
I want to know how you're doing. Tell me.
So I think I'm doing okay. It's been a little bit of a busy season. I had like an essay submission, which was very fraught. Like, I don't know what the deal was with that.
I was just gonna say, I know why you were fraught. You fucking did it though. Like,
I did do it.
Watching from the sidelines, it was like watching that one kid in class that can pull the like 72 hours straight all-nighters in the library and get like the capstone project done in one weekend. And you're like, I don't know how you're functioning. You did it.
Me either. But I did get it done, and I like submitted it kind of like at the last minute, which, you know, I knew it was going to be very much like under the wire. I think the thing that was hard for me is that the words were just like not coming out right. And I think that this is relevant to this topic that we're talking about today, because I feel like I cared a lot about the essay that I was writing because it's an area of interest that I really have. And I was in the back of my mind, I was like, you know, if I get a good grade on this, like I could potentially use this as the basis for like a future like master's application, which, you know, like that's a crazy amount of pressure to like put on yourself
for an already pressure-filled situation.
Yeah. To like write that in like 1 week amidst other responsibilities and such. So I think that was in the back of my mind, and also that I was like, I really was interested in this topic and I cared about it a lot. And so I wanted it to be really good. And I kept trying to tell myself that like done is good, but then I was like, no, bitch, it's not.
We're
It's
not
gotta
going to
be
allow that today.
like, that's so cute that you think that that's enough.
Oh, look at
But it's
her. She
not.
thinks she's going to be okay in the next 2 hours. She
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah. But I think what I really struggled with, and it really took me aback because I did this class because I like writing, and we obviously are doing this podcast because we are writers.
Yeah.
And this class that I'm doing is entirely graded on essays. Like I have to like go to class and stuff on these like teaching weekends in Oxford, but I'm assessed on essays of various lengths and topics. And so that means that I have to do writing, and I like doing that. But this was just a very unenjoyable process, and it was very fraught. And I think it was a time crunch. I had sort of built up like the importance of this in my mind.
It was also right after the holidays.
I was mentally very fatigued like going into it, but also I will say that I just felt like anything that I wrote down was just like not coming out right. And I think that is relevant to this episode because that I think sometimes is a reason that you get stuck too. Is you're like, this is shit. This is not
This is not
good,
what I
or like, what
anticipated.
am I doing? Like, what even is this? What am I doing? And it's a lot easier to like edit something that exists. And that is also a lesson that I relearned this last submission. But all that to say, I have not written creatively as much as I wanted to because I was pretty much up to the wire of that essay deadline. And then I worked and I had like a really crazy, super stressful work week. And then I literally got my ass on a plane and went to Oxford. So I did write for like a little bit when I was there, but I was looking at my Gold Star calendar and I was like, you got 11 days left of this month, girl. You got to do a little bit better.
Show us your calendar. I don't think
we're
you've shown it for the
refocusing.
podcast.
Here you go.
How cute is that little, for those of you listening? It's just like a tiny mini calendar. It's probably like 3 inches by 3 inches, 2.5
That's so
by
cute.
2. And then she has just little gold stars in the day she wrote any creative words at all. And it's just like, and it stands like a little desk calendar.
It's very cute.
It's like immediate, small, and visual that you can clearly see how many days she got stars.
Yeah. So
I'm jealous.
I'm looking, and I like this method because it's just something really visual that like I do keep track of like my writing and how I'm feeling about it, like in my planner. But I think it's just really quick to look at the month and be like, okay, I'm not going to beat myself up about the reasons why I wasn't able to prioritize it for this week and a half stretch of time, but I have 11 days left of the month. How am I going to prioritize it now? And I feel like it's now in like the forefront of my mind, and I'm like really determined to get a bunch more stars in the next 11 days and like make this month look good. And that's just sort of how life goes, right? We have ebbs and flows.
And you know yourself too, like this probably wouldn't work for everybody, but we've joked with Allie before, your competitive nature of like,
with myself, to be clear, I don't really care about what other people are doing, but like me, I'm like, you can always do better, bitch. You could always be better.
Which is good to some extent, but not, we got to be kind to ourselves too. But in this instance, like your little calendar is doing what you intended it to do. Like, ooh, I want to get more gold stars. It's just going to feel so much better to see more at the end of the month, since the beginning of the month was a little low.
It was a little low. It was a little shaky. We were on shaky ground that week, but that's okay.
But it's over. Your submission is done. You're back from Oxford and you seem hopeful. Like, moving in.
I'm excited to get back into it, and I worked a little bit on the plane the other day, and I was also thinking about some of these tactics to like make sure that like when I have time to sit down and write, that I'm like, boom, we're like ready to go. And I know like exactly what I want to do. And that's what we wanted to talk to you guys about today, of like, what are some of the reasons why we get stuck? And then what are some answers to getting unstuck, essentially?
And by no means is this an exhaustive list.
No.
These were just some of the things that were first to our mind, looking at our own resources that resonated with us. So as always, let us know what you think in the comments, or if you have more strategies, as always, please let us know. That's the beauty of this podcast and finding you guys online. It's about lifting each other up and sharing tips and tricks so we can all succeed together, which is just so great. I can't speak enough how much I've loved finding my bookish people in this community and seeing us all help each other. So let's keep doing it.
Yes. So Amber, what are like some common problems that you feel like we can run into, and like what are some reasons that we can get stuck?
Yeah. So I think first we want to talk about like how we get stuck before we talk about solutions, because sometimes you need to know like why you're stuck or what the problem is.
For sure.
I think a common one is like, I don't know what happens next, like immediately next, right? Like you and I have talked about, we're in the middle. We're not complete outliners, but we're not pantsers. So we have those goalposts or we have like scenes we know, but then like we know we're going to figure that out, which is part of the fun. But sometimes it's almost like I'm in a fugue state. Like it's not analysis
Yeah.
paralysis because it's not like all the
Yeah.
options are in front of me, but that's almost the problem. I'm either too exhausted or nothing's coming to top of the head where I almost need a list or something to be like, here are a bunch of things you could do. Does anything sound fun? Would that fit here? But it's like you're trying to generate that off the top of your head. Sometimes it's just like blank. Huh. What should happen next? Something needs to
Yeah.
happen next before we're over here at this goalpost.
Yeah.
So I think that's a common one for me.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And yes, it really plays into like how we sort of find ourselves writing and where we have like those big goalposts and those sort of like touchstones of the story. But then there's like a lot of room to like sort of free write and kind of explore and come up with like new things, which is really fun. But when you're like, I'm tapped out, I literally have no idea what happens next. Like I know I need to eventually get here, but I have no idea how to go about it. Like that can be kind of stressful and scary. I think one of the other things too is if I do have an idea for a scene, and this kind of happened to me in this chapter that I just finished writing, is I was like, okay, I'm really excited for like this thing to happen. But it doesn't really happen until like the back half of the scene. And then it like continues into like another chapter. I get a little bit sort of overwhelmed by like all of the connective tissues and being like, okay, how do I get started? What's the lead in? I need to like blend from like the note from the last sort of, final line of the last chapter and like bring you into this one. And there just sometimes feels like there's a lot of stuff that has to happen before you can write the thing that you want to write. And that can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah. And then another one I have, sometimes it's just like, it's boring or not fun. And maybe it's my mood and maybe I need to write out a sequence. I used to do that more. I don't know why I'm not anymore. Maybe it's because I'm just like, no, you need to goalpost and don't save it for later. Like get it done. Or maybe that's the problem. If it's boring and not fun, you need to fix something. Maybe you need to totally pivot and change something about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But sometimes
Yeah.
it's boring and not fun. And you're like, what's happening?
Yes,
This wasn't the
exactly.
last chapter. What happened?
Yeah. And then I think also kind of similarly, if like something's boring or not fun, like is it not fun because like you haven't planned a lot for what's happening? Like is it not fun as a reader? Like is that a signal of it's not going to be fun as a reader? But is it also maybe like you said, is your mood like maybe you're really mentally fatigued? Maybe you're sitting down to write and you're forcing yourself to do it, but it feels like a slog because you're just really uninspired.
Yeah.
And some days are like that. And if you want to get a project done, I mean, you can't wait for the muse every single day.
Every
Like it's
single
just
time.
not going to
Yeah.
happen. And you can certainly wait and do that, but it'll probably take you a long time to get
We're
a
not
project
talking
done.
years, we're talking decades if you're waiting for the
Yeah,
perfect, or at
so-
least in my situation, for the perfect opportunity. Again, I'm always talking about how I want to like have 3 uninterrupted hours at my desk with the snacks and the things. And girl, if you're going to wait
Make
for
it a whole
that,
ritual and blah, 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 blah.
We're gonna-
Yeah.
you're going to be
But-
waiting a long freaking time.
Exactly. And like some days it's just like you're really mentally tired, but you're like, I need to show up. I said I was going to show up. I'm doing this for myself. Like how do you navigate that? Like I feel like those are all reasons that I feel like I resonate with all of those, or reasons why I will sometimes feel stuck, or sometimes it's not necessarily stuck, but it's sort of like, man, it's really taken me a long time to get this chapter done. And this chapter is only supposed to be 1,200 words max. And wow, this has taken me some time.
Okay, so now that we've talked about at least our common pitfalls of like when we're getting stuck, Allie, do you want to get us going on some of the items and lists we came up with of how to get unstuck, or exercises or resources that we think we found helpful or could be helpful to you, the listener?
It would be my life's greatest pleasure.
We love pleasure on this podcast.
We do love pleasure on this podcast. So writing dialogue, just like no tags. I mean, no who's saying what, but like literally don't worry about like exciting tags. You can literally be like, this person said, that person said.
Yeah, don't
Like-
even do the set. Just anything in quotations. You're not putting movement. You're not doing scenery. You're not doing anything. It's just everything in the quotes. If you were just listening to the conversation
Two
as a
talking
fly on the
heads.
wall.
Like just
Yeah.
plop us down in the middle of the scene where like an important conversation needs to happen, or like that's like a really good way that I have found that like if I'm really feeling overwhelmed by all of that like connective tissue stuff, or just feeling overwhelmed where I'm like, I need to get to this kernel in this chapter, but how do I get there? Because all of this other stuff has to happen. And like, how can I physically move them in this space? How can I move them in their character arc? And like sometimes that's overload. So
Or for me, sometimes I have it's related to being stuck, but sometimes I have it so clear in my mind the conversation I want to have happen, and then I lose it because I'm too focused on the other stuff. So now I'm trying to give myself permission. If you for some reason have a very clear dialogue, just go with it, write it, fix the other stuff later. But like if you're inspired to know exactly what you want the fight to be like and what you want to say, or you're just like hearing it, like don't fight the muse when it's there just because you're like, again, it's not sequential. Like I have to make sure to put in all the other stuff. You can do that later. There are no rules, but sometimes it's always hard to remember that as well. So another way of to like let yourself write all that dialogue if you're hearing it.
yeah. Yeah. And I think I actually did this the other day. I was working on this chapter that took me kind of forever, and it was like a connective tissue issue, and I was getting through it. But then as I was finishing that up, I sort of had like a light bulb of
Why does a light bulb bing, Amber? It doesn't. But we needed an audio, so you're welcome.
we did, yes. Sound effects brought to you by Amber and Allie.
You're welcome.
But I had this idea for like essentially a scene, and basically like the only thing that I wrote was like just the dialogue between like my one character, my heroine, and this like other character that was, important at a later date. And I'm not going to get to that chapter for like probably a good while, but I had this like brainwave of like, oh my gosh, this conversation needs to happen. This is really great. This is topical. This is whatever. And it kind of played into some of the themes that I was working with. And so I honestly wrote like 1,200 words of dialogue, and it just came out of nowhere. Yeah. And there was nothing else in there. I did have some tags and like a little bit of movement because it like came easily and naturally, but just not having the pressure of like crafting the scene and all that stuff and just getting to like this conversation. Now I'm like, okay, I have this in the parking lot. I know what's going to happen. And I can build from around that.
I love that. So again, writing dialogue straight, no rules. Either you're stuck or if it feels good, do it.
Yeah.
Second one we have here is some easy craft books, but they're more like references. So we have two we wanted to share.
Yeah.
The first one is The Emotional Wound Thesaurus. So there's many different versions, but this one in particular is the Wound Thesaurus. And so again, kind of what we alluded to with one of the problems is like you almost just need a master list of like a bunch of options to see if something triggers. But it's almost like carrying the mental load of trying to come up with the list. Like you're stuck. Like I can't even come up with ideas right now. Like I feel like I would know it if I heard it or I saw it. If you have something with easy lists or a craft book that has it organized that way nearby, so it's not like you're sitting down to read a full chapter of a craft book on a very in-depth topic. So for example, you won't be able to see it, but like in the very beginning here in the index, it talks about all different kinds of emotional trauma wounds. So in their different categories, so crime and victimization, disabilities, failures, injustice. And for example, my hero in mine is being raised by a narcissist. There's a whole page on it. It talks about examples of what a narcissistic parent looks like, what beliefs commonly children then get from that. Love is how people manipulate you. Love is conditional. So it's all of these things that could just like easily remind you of situations that could come about. That is just like an easy, quick reference guided list of all things that sometimes is really helpful. Allie, do you use this one a lot? I actually bought this one not that long ago. So I'm trying to remember that it's now in the lineup of things that I need to use more often.
I bought this last year. I think I haven't used it very much, but since we were kind of like talking about this, I was like, I should absolutely be using this more because I think kind of like what we talked about in our Story Genius episode, I think the reason that Story Genius is one of my favorite craft books is because thinking about character and emotional wound and personality traits and like all of those things as the engine that fuels the plot and, someone's positive reaction or negative reaction to a situation that's perfectly crafted by you, the Machiavellian author, activate. That is that is a very interesting story and that like keeps things moving forward. And I think this is a really good reminder of, sometimes if you're stuck, maybe you need to like be reminded a little bit about your character's wound and like, how are they actually going to react to a situation? And if you're thinking about how they're going to react to a situation, or you're getting some ideas of like, you know, in here it does say like, what are some triggers for this wound? Maybe what your scene needs is like, maybe your scene needs a trigger.
Let's just be awful and trigger the shit out of them.
Yeah, like maybe a trigger needs to happen, or maybe their response to a situation needs to fuel the plot and things like that, and kind of moving things forward, because all these are creators of tension, which is what moves the story forward, right? So I think that's just a good reminder that sometimes going back to character, and this is like such a great reference, The Emotional Wound Thesaurus, as we mentioned. We love these books from, I think it is the Writers Helping Writers, and they have a great website too. They have a lot of free worksheets. I think one of our setting mini-sodes, we talked about their worksheets and stuff. And so they have a lot of like free printables. They're the ones that make the Emotional Wound Thesaurus. They have the Emotion Thesaurus that I also have here.
Yeah,
they make these really great reference books, and they have like a whole website and community of a lot of these things that I think is really helpful. So shouting them out.
Another one I have is the Master Lists for Writers. This is by Bryn Donovan. She's a romance author. I recently read one of her newer releases, Her Night at the Museum, like KNINGHT.
Oh, cute.
So that was fun. Yeah, she did a little event at Tropes and Trifles in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I went to her little talk. So that's kind of how I found out about her. But this is even like more basic, like what I talked about earlier, that sometimes I just like need a list of options so I can just see if something sounds really good. So again, in the table of contents, it just has a showing you what lists of things are. So for example, settings or plotting. So if I go to the settings page, it's literally just pages of a list of different settings. So
oh my gosh, I love that.
An airport, a hotel, under a bridge, along the side of a highway. Like you could just like skim through it to see if like, oh, I never would have thought that. But you know what? Under a bridge would work really well in the scene and could be intimate and like who knows what it'll do. But that it takes that mental load of when you're already exhausted and you're stuck and you're frustrated. Like coming up with the list is sometimes, at least for me, is why I'm stuck. Imagine that. Our mental load capacity, I'm tired. I want somebody else to come up with the list, and then I can cherry pick ideas. So if that sounds interesting to you, I do think like this one is such a great resource. And this is a newer one I picked up too, to have nearby that like I want to cherry pick. Bryn already made the list for me. I can go in the index and be like, oh, I think it's setting, it's a plot issue, it's a character trait, a characteristic. Go to that section and just like power read that simple list and like start cherry picking, and then that might give some sparks to be like, oh, okay, let's do it, to like continue on when you're kind of in the like fugue state of I don't know what to do. So
yeah. No, I think that's great. And yeah, just like you said earlier, I don't have an idea off the top of my head, but like I'll know it when I see it, you know, and that's such a great way, is like all of these lists to kind of just like get the ideas flowing.
And not only that, you can buy these digitally, but I also like some of these as physical. Because instead of going to Google and then like, you know how that happens, you're in a rabbit hole, or then you check social media and then you're like, what was I even looking up? Or like, this is that keeps me targeted. I'm looking for a list. I reference this list instead of going online and then maybe getting diverted or not finding what you need. And then you're just like, ugh. And then it's even feels worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again,
true.
a lot of the craft books we've talked about are really great, but it takes more effort. I almost need to pause reading to then like read the craft book, where these are definitely more like list quick based. So it's kind of fun to talk about these that, you know, not always are craft books, really intense tomes that you really need to think hard about or digest, that it can be a quick list or a reference.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So those are like really great solutions for like you're not sure what happens next. Maybe you have decision fatigue, or you're kind of feeling like uninspired in general creative malaise.
Coined here
TM. One of the other things too that I feel like a lot of people recommend, a lot of people like that write books on creativity and that talk about creativity online, is actually just going on a walk, touching some grass. There are some studies that, you know, for psychology in general, walking activates like both sides of your brain. And so there are some likenesses too with like some like EMDR techniques. Like there's people studying that type of stuff. But I think with like creativity, just like being outside, I like to, when I do this, I like to listen to my book playlist that I have made and just sort of like start thinking about stuff. And I think just being in a different environment, moving your body, it allows your brain to think of different things than it does sitting at a desk or sitting on the couch or wherever you are. So it can also help you feel like energized too, because moving your body, getting outside, breathing that fresh air, it does also like make you feel a little bit more inspired, a little bit more energized, just kind of shaking out some of that stagnation. It always does help.
Yeah, I agree. And it sounds so simple and you forget about it, but like just forcing yourself to do it. And recently I did a version of this. I live in Minnesota, as we know, and it's really cold and snowy here this time of year, but I have a little gas fire pit in the backyard.
Oh, I
And
love
it was
that.
just, yeah, and it was just such a heavy week. And I was like, you just need to get outside. And even though it was cold, I like bundled up in my parka. And then I just brought my notebook, again, analog. So then like I'm outside, I'm in the fresh air. I had the fire, I had a cup of coffee, my dog was out. And it was. So I was just able to like brainstorm and write some things to get ideas for my story that I hadn't had previously, where I had felt stuck. So again, related to, it wasn't movement, a little movement, like starting the fire and stuff, but just like being outside in nature, fresh air. So sometimes you got to be creative because not everybody has easy access to walking paths or green space or different seasons. So you can be creative in what that looks like for you if you can't physically touch grass all the time. Maybe you have a balcony and you make
Yeah,
that a
if you
really
have a
cute little
balcony.
space to get fresh air that inspires you. And you can't have a fire, but maybe you can have a candle or like an electric candle or, there's just
Yeah.
things to do.
Yeah, maybe you light a candle, maybe you do something to sort of like change up the energy of the space. You know, this is a pro woo woo podcast, so
It is now. If you didn't know it, we're pro woo woo.
It is now. Let's
Energy
light a
and
candle.
space makes a difference.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
I feel like you should talk about this one because you just did this, but make a mood board or a story or a scene, or we already talked about playlists. We kind of had a mini-sode about this, but previously, but if you haven't, or if you had made the mood board, just remember to have it out or maybe reference it or reference the playlist of what inspired you earlier. So that's a quick, you don't even need to deep dive too much into it, but just remember that you have those things and bring them out for a refresher to see if it kind of triggers anything for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love mood boards and like playlists and stuff. If I'm feeling like, oh God, like I don't even know where to think, I don't even know where to begin thinking about this next section. And especially I find if I'm mentally fatigued and then I'm like starting a new chapter, you're like, what is my runway? Like
That is
how
not a
am
good
I-
duo.
How am I going to get in? How am I going to get into this? So like going back and looking at my mood board or making a mood board for like a scene, even like getting onto Pinterest or like looking at other royalty free images and stuff like that and thinking about, okay, this is like what the scene needs to be. And then doing like a mood board for that or a mood board or a playlist for the scene, sometimes doing it on like even more of like a micro level like that. Like
yeah.
what is the mood board for this chapter? What's
I
happening
like
in this
it.
chapter?
Instead of just the book. That's cool.
Instead of just the book. And yeah, that does like gives me a little bit more of like a creative energy boost because then I get excited and I'm like, oh, okay, I can feel this. There's another like sensory experience that's happening. And then we can get into it.
Allie, you also have to do this next one because you
Okay.
love this. You love this.
I do love this so much. Give yourself a challenge or a prompt. This is like my life hack. This, if you want me to do something that I don't want to do, the way that you can make it fun for me is like you can like give me like a zany challenge or be like you have to work in this word or like this situation has to happen, like you have to talk to this person, like whatever. Give me sort of like a random task that I have to do in this process. And so for writing, that's absolutely like a prompt. And I know that there's a bunch of different like books and stuff that have like thousands of writing prompts and you can even just Google them. I think websites like Readsy, they also have like a bunch of sort of like prompts and stuff like that going on that you can look at. And it could even be something as simple as like you're kind of bored with this scene and you're like, I just feel like it's boring. It's going to be boring for me as the reader. It's going to be boring for me as the writer. What's something that you like find really funny? What's an id list item?
I was just going to say id list. This is where an id list item comes in.
This is where the id
easy.
list comes in. Like what's something that you're just like, this needs to be, I need to like work in a cable knit sweater or like burnt marshmallows or whatever, something like that. I was really vibing off of Amber's backyard fire pit, as you could see. I was thinking about those.
Come
things
over, hang
associated
out.
with
We'll
that.
have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. So, kind of thinking about those things and what I like to do is I like to think about something like kind of funny or really random that I can either work into like dialogue or that I can work into like the background or a side character, whatever. And I find that is like just immediately a way that my brain starts working. And I'm like, okay, it's like a puzzle. How are we going to fit this in and have this be good? So
I love
I'm a
that.
huge fan of a prompt. This story that I'm working on right now actually started as a prompt. So, you never know where it's going to take you.
You love a prompt. And then our last one comes from Marie. She says, hello, you guys. But in prepping for this episode, she wanted to provide that she actually heard from Brandon Sanderson, who we all know is like a very, very well-known author, the 3 Ps. So there's promise, progress, and payoff. So the promise, what does the reader expect to get from the scene, right? Like where are they coming in with that expectation of what happened beforehand? The second part, progress. Does the chapter actually move forward in something, right? If you're very stagnant and it isn't moving towards anything, maybe that's the problem and why you feel stuck is because that you need to make progress as a writer. And so it's intriguing for the reader. And then the last one, payoff. How does that scene actually deliver in the end? Or maybe subvert it, right? Sometimes you're putting up those those not goalposts, roadblocks. There we go. Putting up those roadblocks to then make progress because you're really going to divert things. So I really liked that it was the 3 Ps to easily remember from Marie, and then obviously a very talented writer, Brandon Sanderson. So
Can I just say that this whole this is from Marie, but like also Brandon Sanderson. It reminds me from The Office where it's like, written on the board, like you miss all the shots you never take or whatever, and it's like Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky, like that's
via Wayne Gretzky via Michael Scott. Yeah, that's totally happening.
That's
and not
like
only that, but it's a
absolutely
step
how this
further.
feels right now.
Amber's describing to you something that came from Marie, that came from Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
freaking welcome. Did you get all that?
Yes. That solves like quite a few problems.
Yeah.
That method.
Or at least you got to try
Yeah.
again. And if not, you tell us, have you found something personally that works for you?
Yeah,
that we haven't
exactly.
talked about?
These were just some stuff off the top of our head that kind of shaking things up, ways to re-enter the story because, it's been a crazy holiday season and I can't believe we're almost done with this current month. So I feel like this year is on a fast track, which is good in some ways, but it's also like, where has the time gone?
Yeah. And I don't think we're alone. Actually, I know we're not, because it was a lot of posts in the early January from some of our friends online and around as the same thing. Like, going into your work in progress after the holiday season. Like, right? Like everyone is busy and you're like, oh my God, where did I leave off? You kind of get into a flow when you write frequently. It's not hard to jump back into your story, but when you take bigger time off, it's a common problem to have. So we thought this was a timely episode to do for the manuscript mini, so that we ourselves are experiencing this, but I do not think we are alone. So it's always nice to share tips and tricks to help each other out, because it's just that time of year and now we're getting back into it and we want to lift you up with us.
This is going to be, we've got 2 months and some change left of Q1 and we're going to freaking
2026
make it our bitch,
We're going to make it our bitch in the ways we can control and we want to. There's a lot of things we cannot control right now and that sucks. So let's pour our love, energy, sweat, tears into the things that we can have an impact with.
Yeah. I mean, I am a little bit of a control freak, and that is because it is one of my favorite coping mechanisms.
I can't control this. Well, I can do this.
I can absolutely control this. And, we can control what we're working on and how we show up. And, we would love to hear from you guys. And we're so appreciative for you guys for listening. And hopefully that this is, if you're feeling stuck and just you're feeling blah about your work in progress, and don't doubt yourself, keep going.
You got this.
And maybe use some of these tactics to kind of shake things up and get things moving again in that draft.
We believe in you. Keep going.
We do. But yeah,
Don't
thank you
stop.
so much for joining us. If you have not yet, please go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you can, give us a 5-star review. A couple of you already have, and we so appreciate that.
Thank you.
It really does help us find like other romance readers and writers and build our community, and we are stronger together. If you haven't yet as well, we are on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Smut and Sensibility Pod. And you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Smut and Sensibility. We do have a Substack and a Blue Sky, and our goal for this year is to be a little bit more active on Substack because it's such a good platform, and I really enjoy it as like
A connoisseur.
as a consumer, yes, as a person on the app. And so I think there's, definitely some stuff that we can further do. But there's only so many hours of the day, and we are ourselves our own work in progress.
We're full-time ladies working on the internet. So
we are full-time ladies working on the internet. So there's only so much that we can do. But we would love to see you in any or all of those places. And we've loved chatting with you guys. And we hope that you stay safe and, most importantly, stay smutty and go forth in pursuit of your happily ever after. Bye.
bye, guys.